we've been having like some folks join and saying kind of random things. So we've had me and Victor kind of removing them as we see that. So for that reason, and for potential risk of like some obscene things being streamed, we won't stream it, but we're recording the session and we'll have it on our website later on when it's available. But yeah, to get started, good evening, everyone. My name is Shanika Ward. I'm the current Atlanta chapter president. And for those that are new to BDPA, we're a nonprofit membership organization, and our areas of engagement are mostly focusing on exposure to technology, like professional development, I guess potential fields to jump into, and just overall ways of advancement. So BDPA's motto is advancing classrooms from the advancing careers from the classroom to the boardroom. So our main thing is about, how can we, with exposure, I guess, bridge the gap, try to bring up more equity across our people. So some of the, I think, bigger areas that we kind of focus on is like our STEM program. So from typically from around, I think, January, February, at the beginning of the year till right up until the conference in August, we're running a STEM program with students, high school and college students, various programs that I think are bigger. The biggest one is our like web development program, but there's also data science, there's a cloud academy, there's an IT showcase area that's mostly about research or researching problems. I think there are some more that I might be missing. I know as we continue to grow, we want to get into esports and kind of learning more about game development there. But that's an area that we're still exploring and hoping to grow. In addition to the youth STEM program, we're still growing our college outreach. Like my alma mater is Georgia State, and for some of you all that maybe heard earlier, like this evening right before the session, we were able to have like a meet and greet session with our latest scholarship recipients for a scholarship that we've been offering for 3 years now. So we're hoping to continue to offer that as long as the donor is interested in offering, but we also would like to grow that scholarship. So if anyone has any insights for ways to maybe grow that, to be able to even reach more students and give back even more, that would be great too. And then also our monthly program. So like thanks to Matrix, we've been able to continually have meetings every month for the last couple of years. Last month was our first virtual session since I think January 2020. And so we thank Edwin for speaking and the fun that we had last month out in Dunwoody. We're hoping to have some more in the future. We'll see how it goes. But I think with that, I'll hand it over to John to introduce our speaker for this evening.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thanks, Shanika. Do you know that you have 2 glasses of wine that you've poured, and they're not like attended to behind you? I don't. Are you drinking 2 at a time now? Is your new project like that stressful, or?
This week has been okay, but
I'm kidding you. Well, it's great to be here again. Quick shout out and thanks to Jamel Clarke for joining us this evening. Our theme this year for our monthly sessions has been on leadership development. And we've had a lot of great speakers and topics this year so far. Like Shanika said, Edwin Salako presented last week on purpose. It was a very, very moving session. It was great to be in person. It was wonderful. So thanks again, Ed, for being with us. It was awesome. And Jamel is someone that's I've known for quite a long time. Currently, Jamel is the CTO of SimpleHealth and was the software engineering manager at MailChimp prior, was the software engineering manager at Honeywell prior to that. And before that is when he and I worked together for, I guess, over 5 years at Matrix in our professional services division. And Jamel was one of our leaders. He headed up, at that point, he headed up our DevOps practice and was one of my faves, to go out into the field and call on clients and, solution together. So I asked Jamel if he would be a guest speaker for us and lead a session on leadership. He graciously said yes. I gave him a few ideas and he said, just wait a second, JV. I got a topic. I said, all right, bring it. And he said, what about leadership during uncertain times? I'm like, drop the mic. I'm in. So couldn't be more pertinent, and where we are right now. I don't know if you know what Matrix does. We're a IT staffing company. So we see the market just go up and down. It's been up and down so much the last couple of years. It's just a crazy time right now. It's hard to put your finger on like what's all going on. And it's certainly uncertain. So I'm going to stop talking, turn it over to Jamel, and thank you again for being with us, Jamel.
Well, thank you, JB. Thank you for the introduction. First, I'll say I do have a couple of slides, but I'm not a person who reads from slides, so I'm not going to read at you. This is going to be more interactive. Just these slides will kind of help guide me and make sure that I keep time appropriately. So just give me one moment. All righty. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to talk today about leading during uncertain times. And as JV pointed out, this market has been incredibly in flux. And, especially in the tech sector, you're having really great times, and then you're having lows, you're having jobs announced and then pulled, you're having candidates apply, interview, offer, and then have the jobs rescinded. It causes internal turmoil. And the teams that you're working with also are dealing with a lot of uncertainty. They're not understanding if they're going to have a job next week, being part of this massive set of layoffs. Then it's kind of weird, because then you're seeing massive amounts of hiring and low unemployment. So it's really difficult to pinpoint what's happening. So you have to be extremely flexible as a leader. So I'm going to go through a couple of topics, but first I'll tell you all a little bit about myself. I'm not going to read this to you, but I do have a 30-year career. And personally, I actually never wanted to be in leadership. I really enjoyed engineering, but I had some really good mentors along the way who identified some qualities in me that pushed me and propelled me, and talked to me about the importance of having a seat at the table. Said I've been around for a pretty long time, born in the 70s, started my career in the early 90s. So there were not many seats at the table for people who look like me. And so there was a lot of importance when I had opportunities to get in and fill these roles, even when I wasn't quite ready. I had to grow up in those areas so that I can help with diversity initiatives, which I do now a lot. So, helping to prepare other people for leadership development is extremely important for me, because when I decide to retire, I want, our opportunities to be better and greater. So, that's part of my contribution to tech and leadership. So we're going to talk about a few topics, that tie back into being a leader during uncertain times. And, the first topic is going to be really how to take care of yourself. That old adage about putting your mask on first, which is really important. Being transparent, making a plan and knowing when not to stick with it, and what I really consider the art of over communicating. So we'll kind of dive into these topics, and please feel free to interrupt. This is if you want to jump in, ask something, bring something up, talk about something that you've experienced, please let's have this as a conversation and not just a talk. So with that being said, I'll pause for 1 second before we go forward. Does anyone want to interject now? If not, I'll move forward into the first topic. Okay. Thank you. So self-care is extremely important and being a leader. I think it's one of the things that most people do not discuss. We talk about work ethic, what you're giving, but when you run out of energy and do not have anything to give to a team, you're not going to be an effective leader. You will not be able to perform, and you're going to really tarnish trust with your team. So I feel it's very important for people who are getting into leadership and people who are already established leaders to really identify some things that bring them back to that place of center, that place of wholeness. For myself, not afraid to say it, I'm a big spa day person. It really relaxes me. So, I'll get a manicure, pedicure, facial, get my hair cut. I feel like a human being again. And when I show up to work, I'm smiling, I feel better. And that translates to your team, right? It helps your team become comfortable talking to you. Same thing with your peers. So cross functionally, if you're in a good mood, you're much easier to talk to. And for whatever reason, also when your mood is heightened, you also are, you find it easier to talk to your leaders and disseminate information. So I think that one of the best steps, especially when you are dealing with uncertainty, is to establish a routine of self-care, and that could be travel, ensuring that you get to your kids' baseball, football games, et cetera, whatever it is that's really important to you. Stick to that and set really strong boundaries about attending these things. It is very important for you to establish those boundaries and not let work dictate everything to you, because as a leader, what you do is you start modeling for your employees. And if they see that you work 90 hours a week, they think that that means that they have to work 90 hours a week, and then you will burn out you and your team. So, I guess I'll ask a question. I mean, do any of you have any self-care routines that you think really help you when it comes back to getting into work, things that you may do on the weekends, after work, et cetera, that will help?
Jamal, I work at a place where last year, I just started, I've been there a little over a year, and we were given a certain amount of vacation days. So coming into this year, first quarter for us is February. I work at Walmart. First quarter for us is February. So now we have unlimited vacation. It's unlimited, but you still have to get your work done and have somebody cover you while you're out. I mean, so how do you do you encourage your employees to take their vacation PTO? What are your thoughts upon that? And what are your thoughts upon unlimited? Unlimited doesn't mean unlimited.
Yeah, unlimited doesn't mean that you take 360, you get 365 days off, right? So, first I'll start with the business side of unlimited PTO. Unlimited PTO is set up so that you don't have to pay out,
Yes.
Unused PTO when someone leaves. But the benefit of that to an employee should be that if you are performing well, there should not be that level of guilt, especially if you have good managers that are helping to enforce employees to take that time off. I'm a very big proponent for folks using their time. So if you're getting the work done, I have no issues personally with if you're taking 6, 8, 10 weeks off out of the year if you're a high performer. Now, if your performance is low and you're taking that amount of time, that's going to be an issue, right? So it's really relative to your ability to get your job done. If you work hard, I think you should be able to play hard and enjoy that, because you're not costing your company or institution. You are value add, and if that's the way that you use to recharge yourself, by all means, take the time.
And what I hear you saying, Jamel, is really about accountability, right? So if you're being accountable for those things that are under your charge, then it becomes easier to get some leverages in work. And one of the things some of the things that I try to do, from a self-care standpoint, is definitely unplugging. When I have my weekends and I get opportunities to engage with, whether it's BDPA students or engaging with my family and the activities that we do together, I'm literally not thinking about work. I'm just not, because I understand that I've already dedicated, X amount of times every day of the week to that particular organization, right? So I try to really separate it. Although I understand that there's going to be overlap at different times, but on my weekends, I like that to be my weekends. And I understand, in the seat that I'm in and, those that I aspire to get in, sometimes those roles require you to do like some off hour type stuff.
Yep.
But at this point in life, I try to keep that very separate. And the second piece, I believe in this stress-free work environment, which means that I'm going to hopefully get off my chest, whatever I need to get off my chest in the moment, in the most professional of ways, because I don't want to take it with me. I don't want that thing to track me in other realms of my life. I don't want to be thinking about, some meeting I was in while I'm sitting up with my wife watching a movie. Like I don't want. I get it all out during the workday, and then I push it on, and I do fairly well. I don't deal with much stress at work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also too, like and talk about almost this feeling of guilt sometimes when you take off, right? Because you have things. So one thing that I keep in mind, there's always going to be more work, right? There's never an opportune time to, I used to wait years ago. I won't vacation until I can get all these things off of my plate. And my reward was always more things added to the plate. And so you will eventually burn out. And societally, we've gotten comfortable with people feeling guilty with taking vacations. I believe in guilt-free vacationing. So when it comes to your PTO time, you've earned it as part of your benefits. You should use it. You should just be, Victor, as you said, responsible and accountable, right? So if you understand that by leaving, because I didn't do something that I should have done months ago, I'm now leaving the burden to my team, right? That's not responsible. But if you've done your work, you do what you need to do. You have an obligation to yourself to take care and even if it's not going on vacation, it can be a staycation at home. You just want to hang out with the other family. Absolutely take that time. And if you find yourself in an organization that attempts to make you feel guilty for wanting to recharge, you might need to look for another organization where you have a safe space to work hard, but also play hard.
I think there's this goes back to our March session this year. We had Derek Brown talking about driving innovation and creativity. And the point was, if you as a leader are modeling that, you're wearing a badge of working 70 hours a week or whatever, I bet you, and his point was, your level and your ability to be innovative and to be creative with ideas that are really going to be impactful, this is not there. You don't have the gas in the tank to do it. So then, okay, as a leader, you're always modeling your behavior. So how important are new ideas and shifting and being agile with what we're doing these days? So it's I always, like with my team, I'm just like, I want everyone to use every single day of their vacation that they have. I mean, if anything, it's a shame on not using all of your vacation. You should use it all. And then I try to come back and say that, like when you come back from a trip or something and, share, about your vacation, and maybe link something to it, to link something, relevant to work, or something that you guys are working on as a team. And that models the behavior of, see, a little bit of downtime. I, wasn't in all of the day-to-day stuff, and it allowed me to kind of rise up on another level to think more creatively.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another thing that I do, and it throws people off sometimes, just some days you're just not feeling work. I can sit at the desk and be there, and I'm not getting anything accomplished, but I'm present, right? And some days you're just extremely exhausted. So I'll just take a mental health day, and I'll tell people, yeah, I'm going to take today off, and play video games. And kind of the look of shock on my team. Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I'm sick. I'm not sick. I can sit here. Nothing's going to get done today. Like I know myself, and I'm just going to be even more exhausted tomorrow. Or I can just take this day off. I know it's random. I will get back in the seat tomorrow, and I will accomplish probably 3 times as much as I would, you know, in a given day, because I needed that extra recharge. And I don't want the team to feel like I need to lie to you and pretend that I'm sick. Sometimes just don't have the gas in the tank, and you need to do what you need to do to recharge. So I love to set that safe space for teams to for you work hard. Let's be adults, and we're gonna be able to take the time that we need to take care of ourselves. And I'm gonna move on to the next topic. And we can always touch back and circle back on any of these things. So, talking about transparency, right? It's really important for to build trust with your teams, but transparency can get a little murky. I know personally, I've signed NDAs, you know, especially when we talk about M&As and things of that nature. I can't always discuss things directly with the team, and the team knows that something is going on. The rumor mills start. That creates a lot of confusion. And I used to do something that I felt was incredibly wrong. Well, now I know it was incredibly wrong. I would tell folks, trust me, I have information that I just can't share with you, but trust me, right? And things are going to be okay. I just can't talk to you about it. Well, that didn't help much. It just made people sit around and talk about the many possibilities that this information might be and how it may impact them, right? So I try my best now to understand first what I cannot say, right? Because it may be sensitive. I may be privy to some information that counsel has looked at and deemed privilege. But I can start to set enough context so that I keep the team prepared. Because what people want from you is, well, what they do not want is for you to not prepare them for the work that's coming. So let's say that you started talking about something 3 months in advance. You now come to them and say, hey, we're about to start doing XYZ. Now they say, well, we now do not feel like we have enough time to review this. We do not feel like we can actually get this done. You've had this information. Oh yes, the leadership team they go off in this dark room and they make decisions and come back and they thrust all the work on us. I think as a leader, you can be preparing your teams, right? Early for things without breaking any contracts, right? So you just have to be clever about how you do that, because you are thinking about how you're going to implement, this next set of work. And you can start laying the tracks for the team and getting them involved early, so that when you are able to bring them under the tent and tell them about whatever information that was deemed confidential, they will be prepared. And then it does heighten the trust, because what you really get is a response now like, oh, that's why you were preparing us to do this thing, versus you set us up for failure. And so I think this is one of the hardest things to deal with, especially, we talked a little earlier about this market being incredibly interesting, for lack of a better word. You can have reduction in forces pending, and you may not know who will be impacted by it, but you do understand that there are some financial indicators that are leading a certain way, and you can start having discussions about that. You can be preparing your team, right, for the potential of the inevitabilities, right, of potential loss of work. And I've actually found that if you discuss certain things with your team, I haven't seen people disengage and not work. People still show up as professionals, but what they do is they thank you and say, hey, you know what, instead of me getting 2 weeks notice and and finding myself in this chaotic job market suddenly, you prepared me for the 2 or 3 months to get my affairs in order. And they're very thankful of that. It's just kind of when you just lay things on them suddenly, you can understand why that doesn't engender trust.
And I think that's great. And what I like in that too is when the dust settles. Like what does life look like when the dust settles, when the emotions, especially for some of those things that we're aware of that we can't share, when it's dealing with talent, potential reductions, how are they going to feel once the emotion kind of, wanes out? Are they going to look back towards you as their leader and say, you know what? I see that this wasn't in his control to avoid, but he prepared me to go out into this market and have confidence that I have value to bring to the next organization. And that's one of the things, with your slide here when it says, what can I say? I'm of the mindset of what can you do, right?
Yeah.
So as a leader that has an affinity and care for people, like, yeah, I can't disclose certain things that put others in jeopardy. But at the same time, I can continue to encourage how are you coming along with that AWS server? Like, how are you coming along with this thing or that thing, just to ensure that you have the tools in your kit. When you walk out of this door, you're not shaky and timid, right? Because at the organization that I'm with, we have folks with a lot of tenure. And I'm talking like I'm young in the game and for the company I'm with, and I've been there 18 and a half years. Yep. And I'm young in the game, right? There are people that are 30 years, 25 years, but they're not ready for retirement. So you can imagine, if you've been at an organization that long, the anxiety that comes along with knowing that you have these different organizational things occurring, right? And so as a leader, you have to take it serious. Man, you have college, people who got kids in college, people who are paying medical bills, people, you have to take that into consideration. So along with the what can I say is like, hey, are you really preparing them? Do you really care for them?
Yeah.
Have their best interests in mind? And I think that all goes into being an effective leader.
And also as a person, I'm in leadership, but not really liking leadership, thank God. So I'm like, let me just stand back for a moment, as long as I can. But the employees, as an employee, I'm watching the news. I'm watching who's being laid off. I'm watching the latest company has been laid off. And I want to have a major something done to my home, a major window fix that's about $3,000. Do I want to make a major purchase? I mean, I've walked back and forth with Lowe's.com a couple times last year. I'm like, it's $3,000. I have it in savings. Do I want to spend that? Do I want to deplete my savings? But we are watching as well. I'm over at Walmart, and Walmart did not lay off, but what they did do, what management did communicate to us, when people left, they did not fill those positions.
Exactly.
So that's what they did. So you're going to be picking up some extra work along the way. And so you're not going to be asking why I'm picking up extra work. You're thinking, thank God I'm picking up some extra work. But the employees they're not blind. They're looking at the news. They see the economy. They see inflation. They go to the grocery store. And we were like, well, what's happening here? What can I do to make myself better and more marketable? But I do like the thing about asking about certifications, and if you offer, some employee trainings and you have some vouchers for employee trainings, encouraging people and encouraging the team. Hey, I need everybody to be Scrum certified. I need everybody to be this the thing we're going to do this year. We usually don't ask y'all to do. You pick your own what you want to do, but this year we don't want everybody to pick something along this line. But I do appreciate that.
Yeah. And these are things that especially like when you think about transparency, this is a good thing to implement even when you're not in uncertain times. So it just really builds that cohesion with other team. And when you think about mobilizing large sets of teams, I've had the pleasure of managing 5 to 10 teams of managing organizations of plus 100, right? And it's not very easy to mobilize an entire group of people, and if you silo the information too much, right? So I do this thing where I filter, but not silo, right? Because if you inundate people with all of the strategy, they're just going to ask a lot of what and whys, and sometimes it will interfere with their work. But there's a certain amount of that information that needs to be filtered into the team to enable them to successfully complete their job, right? And because, I said it selfishly, it filters back up to you so that you can report out where things are as well. So if you're giving information flows back the other direction a lot more effectively. Teams feel more comfortable letting you know early when there's a problem, so that being your job as a leader is to make decisions. They're not coming to you at the very last minute when you may only have one option. They're coming to you early enough when you have 15 or 16 options, and you can pick from something, which really helps. So I try my best to be as transparent as possible with my teams. They in turn become extremely transparent with me, and we succeed that way. And I have seen the reverse, where transparency was not always given by me or set down by policy in the organization. And I've seen the result of that. Confusion, missed deadlines, higher costs, sitting with my leadership and explaining why we missed the target versus celebrating how we got there early and under budget. I'll move us into the next topic. Planning. I'm a planner. Always have been. Think it's part of me being an engineer. It's hard for me to not plan something out, because if I just sit down and start cranking code out, I have no idea what it's going to end up with. So I've always sat down and planned. What I have learned over time is that no matter what plan you set out, there are going to be conditions outside of your control that will throw your plan off. And you have to be extremely flexible, right? Know when to go to plan B or plan C, know when to throw the entire thing out and start from scratch, understand when it's time to pivot, take accountability for when you may have just missed the leading indicators out there that were telling you that your plan wasn't sound to begin with. Know when to throw it away and start from scratch and own it. I think that sometimes we get into a quarter, right? We do some planning and we stick by that plan no matter what. We see early on this is not going to work, and what we do is we just say we're just going to work more hours. We're going to work harder. Still not working. Everyone's stressed. Well, the plan doesn't work anymore. Just last year, this was especially for startups, it was a grow at all cost economy, and then it switched almost overnight to path to profitability. Those two things typically take time to go from one arc to the next, and yet it seemed to have flipped, within a couple of weeks, right? And many companies were not prepared for that. So money became expensive. Investors stopped putting their capital into companies. If you're only prepared for things to work a certain way, you're really operating on, you're being hopeful, you're wanting luck, right? That's not the same thing as strategy. If you're going to be strategic as a leader, you have to think about, yes, things seem to be going well. Even if the plan seems sound, what if this happens? And then what if this happens? And I'm not saying that you have to have all of the answers. You just have to know, hey, these are some of the things that may come up realistically, and also something that you couldn't even plan for may come up, and you have to be willing to pivot and make changes. I'll pause for a second. So before I move on from this, I there are different types of leadership roles that people take on, and you have a lot of leaders, a lot of folks who are in middle management who are tactical leaders. They are charged with getting certain things done. They mobilize the troops. They understand what the outcomes are. They execute. But when you start talking about strategic leadership, this is where the planning gets really important, and it actually gets heavy because what I plan, and this is something that sits on my heart all the time. The things that I plan actually impact people. If I mess up, the odds of me losing my job are slim because I'm still a strategic leader. I have an immense amount of value in the organization, but I could effectively make a plan, not vetted, and end up realizing that I've increased my burn rate in my organization. I've doubled it, and now I have to let go a third of my team because I made a mistake. So because those plans are heavily weigh stay with you, you really need to think about the strategy, right? And think about your backup plans because you are impacting other people. That doesn't mean to get paralysis, right? When it comes to planning, but you should be thoughtful. It shouldn't just be, I woke up one day, I think this is a great idea, I'm going to now have my org implement this. You really have to think about the pros, the cons, and you should get feedback.
Jamel, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely, John.
So you have your plan, and then you want to have plans for when your plans change. So just avoiding having all of your eggs in one basket, kind of a situation, right? And so a couple of questions. So do you ever use the term with your team a contingency plan, or does that like throw or cast a shadow on your primary plan? That, well, as the leader, do you not believe in our main plan, like that you're setting a contingency plan? And so that would be like one sliver of a question. And then the other is again, that in that same world, do you like show some vulnerability with the team and bring them in early and say, hey, it's just smart of us to have a couple of options, and by bringing them in early, then are they, they're just involved, they're invested? Is that the way to do
Great.
that?
That's actually a great question. I love the way you phrase that. So one of the things that I've learned over the last 10 years or so is that words really matter. Would I say contingency plan? It depends on the audience, right? So I manage leaders who, and sometimes I manage ICs, but I manage leaders who typically at some point down the chain manage ICs. Would I go into a room and start, talking about multiple contingency plans with the group of people who are implementing it? Probably not. I would bring them in early on to solicit feedback, right, about what the main plan is. But the way I kind of frame this is even a project, right? You should be thinking about this as what your pitch is going to be, right? If someone asks you in an elevator what it is that you're working on, how would you phrase that? And that's what you should be echoing back to the team. So at least we can align on what the outcome is, right? The result of whatever the plan is, we're looking to achieve this result. If we can start there and get everyone on board, how we get to it can have ultimate flexibility because we do align that we need to get to a certain place. So it's like setting this, we're going to drive from New York to California. We don't know what roadblocks are going to be in our way, how many times we're going to have to change directions, right? That becomes the plan, right? But the high level plan is that we're going from New York to California, right? So along the way, when we have to make adjustments, people can tolerate that. as long as you are being open. And I also think it is important to generally be vulnerable. I believe in a plan, or I wouldn't sell it to the team. But I do not have all of the answers. And just because you have a seat at the leadership table does not mean that somehow you become an oracle. You are going to make mistakes. And it goes back to what Victor talked about when we were talking about self-care. Accountability is important across the board, right? So it's not just the people doing the work. As leaders, we're also accountable. And I have no problems raising my hand and say, yeah, you know what? I thought that was going to be a great idea 3 months ago. Now that I have more information, I think that we should do X, Y, Z. We're still targeting the same outcome, but we're adjusting the plan so that we can get there. It doesn't make sense for me to double down on a plan that's failing because of ego, right? So you put the ego aside and you ask other folks, do you have alternative ideas? Me as a leader, it does not have to be my idea ever. I love to get the ideas from the people on my team and help to implement them. If it's just me coming up with ideas, I didn't hire well.
Yeah, and what you're saying, that fail fast mentality, like we can go down a pathway, and for whatever reason, if we gain insights that help us pivot from it, that's awesome. Like, okay, we learned early, we can pivot now. And what I was going to share, what you're talking about. So I have this little thing. It's probably hard to read, but this is my doodle sketched out life map, right? So I have many different targets in this life map. But one of those targets is career, one's financial, we have some spiritual faith type stuff, family stuff in there, but I go out post-retirement, right? So to your point, and we can, align this from a business sense, but I go out 25 to 30 years and I set my goal, right? So 25 to 30 years, this is my goal. Now I go in increments of 5 years back. So I work my way backwards and I say the things that I need to accomplish in order to achieve those goals. The closer I get to year one, it's harder to pivot. The impact it's a bit more challenging. However, in order to get to that end goal, it is something 15 years down the line, 10 years, and even 5 years, it's easier to make changes and that thing not be impacted in the timeline, pretty much, right? So it's the same from, work planning sense. The further out it goes, so if we're visionary, if we're strategic, and that's our leadership thing, then it's a lot easier because we're typically planning 5 to 10 years out. Those roadmaps that's 1 year, like, okay, it becomes a bit more challenging to constantly change those. Because
absolutely. Yep.
So the timeline definitely plays into it, but I do believe in the fail fast philosophy because there's no need to waste time, money, effort, or anything else. If you see it's not working, pivot. I'll be the first, similar to you, Jamel, to raise my hands up. Didn't work the way I thought it was. Let's go on to the next. I appreciate the effort you put into there because that's one of the pieces as well. I don't want people to feel, hey, I just spent 3 months, 6 months on this and now you're just going to trash it. No, we appreciate the effort, and the effort that you put in allowed us to see that this is not going to work, right? And so let's put that effort into something that can possibly get us a better return. But no, I love it, man.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that I do, I workshop with my teams, and I always say fail fast, fail forward, and cut the tail, right? So you're absolutely right about the impact. That blast radius is immense when you are closer in that timeline, right? But when you're thinking a year, 18 months out, that plan is aspirational and it's dependent upon a lot of other things happening, right? Things that have not happened yet, so you do not know what those outcomes are going to be. And when you're doing financial modeling for an organization as well, you set a set of outcomes. We would like to see an increase in users by this percentage that results in this type of ROI, et cetera. But something can happen weirdly positively, like you can realize, oh, we didn't hit that target on percentage, but for whatever reason, we're seeing recurring users are starting to spend more money, and you start to realize, well, let's not spend our marketing dollars where we thought we should. We actually should reallocate those funds somewhere else. And that's part of understanding, right, how to pivot, like your initial assumptions, right, didn't kind of vet out the way that you thought, but you learned something new. And I think with a lot of engineers, you kind of take this scientific method, right, and I apply that mentally, try to approach things, with a theory and do some experimentation, learn from it, right, and not be biased by, if the idea came from me, it should work, right? And in fact, having that engineering background, I assume it doesn't work at all. I start with that, and I actually challenge myself a lot and say, when it works the first time out, I'm like, something had to have gone wrong, right? Like this should have been harder. So I assume that I'm not going to have all the answers, and that helps me to pull away from something, especially if it was my idea to start with. I have no problems walking away from it.
Jamel, thank you for what you've been sharing. You mentioned a few minutes ago regarding the plan, and what I've received was being mindful about how, or tactical about how you set up your teams. So two words came to mind: resilience, setting up a resilient team or setting up a redundant team. And wanted to just get a little bit more from you around, that's a subjective thing, right? Ratio relative to the situation, but wanted to see if you can give us a little bit more about how you straddle that line. Because, for example, redundancy during the pandemic, that was good. That was currency, right? And
Yep.
it resulted in a lot of people over hiring. Now redundancy is bad. We're trying to level that off, right? But resilience is always a good thing, but sometimes you can use redundancy to build a more resilient team.
Yep.
Those two R words, just was interested in your thoughts around how you straddle that line, or
Yeah, I'll share that with you. And I mean, you kind of answered it there, right? Because it does depend a lot on market conditions and the appetite that the organization has, right? So when you're de-risking, and you understand that especially, you made the great example of what was happening during the pandemic. People, first from a standpoint that people were getting sick and having to be out of work sometimes a month at a time, right? Sometimes a little more. So you wanted redundancy in order to keep things going. So you're investing in that because you want to de-risk. Now, vaccines, people are even when people are getting COVID, they are recovering a lot quicker. Do you need that type of redundancy in another team? Redundancy is expensive. So you have to be careful at when you implement it, right? There are certain types of teams that do require a certain level of redundancy. So you think about 24/7 operations that require, like infrastructure requires a certain level of redundancy. But if you're thinking about project-based, even product-based work, right? You do want a resilient team. You do not want the redundancy built in, because what you have is a lot of people sitting on a bench twiddling their thumbs. It's an expense. So like if you're selling a product, right, that cost to serve for that product goes up. So you are cutting into your margin by having a large bench. And that's hard to sell as a leader, right? But you do want a resilient team. So you want the right people on the team, right? You want the decision-making moved closer to the left side of the equation, so that people who are more intimate with the work can make some of the pertinent decisions to get things done. And they also feel comfortable when changes are made, right? Or changes need to be made. They can make the change and then let leadership know that we had a change in plan, versus we're asking permission to do this, because they do understand the plan. So yeah, so I lean more towards always having a resilient team. Redundancy, there needs to be the appropriate business case for redundancy, because I'm one of those approvers, right? When someone comes to me about redundancy, and unless you can make a really strong business case, my answer is always going to be, well, no. Product is looking for 40 new features, and we're doubling up on the same features, and I don't see any increase to our revenue, and I see this impacting our margins negatively. So I would probably plan no, outside of things like infrastructure. If you're in a highly compliant organization where there's security risks, you may have some of your cyber folks, some redundancy there. But typically, with a lot of the ICs marching to deliver, you're not going to have that.
Thank you. I got it. Sounded like business and org objectives is your first filter.
Yep.
A data-driven approach is how you fix that ratio. Good stuff, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Right. So I believe in over communicating. I have sometimes been told this in a negative way, that you may be occasionally a little too verbose. You already said this, and why are you repeating it again? But I have learned that this is built, confidence, right? When I go and I sit and I talk to other board, I want them to hear me say something early and often. I want to keep driving it home. I want to reinforce this with the leaders who work for me, and I want them to reinforce it with things with other teams. People feel kind of like wrapped in a blanket when you kind of reinforce certain things. And yes, you are repeating yourself sometimes, but it helps me, right, to not have to field questions. Are we still trying to do this thing? It's like, nope, every week we're gonna kind of refer, this is still the goal, and this is why we're here. Let's have a discussion about it. It also primes me for giving information to leaders. I almost go, dang it, when somebody comes to me and asks me, like one of my leaders will come to me and ask me about something that I may not have put in my executive summary when I'm explaining what my team has accomplished. And I say, oh, man, I left that out. I really want to over communicate that so that they have very few questions about where we are. I try to use tech, being a tech person to help with that. So, using Agile and helping people understand what our burns are, what our velocity is, et cetera, but doing it not so much in the Agile way, right? Where some business stakeholders do not understand that language. I try to put together certain dashboards so that it makes sense to the business outcomes, but they're not asking every day, where's your team with this set of features? They understand that we are 90% done, have a plan to move this into production on this date. If there is an issue, the rollback plan is XYZ, and they're not set, coming to me with a whole bunch of questions because I'm just over communicating it. I do that also on the positive things with the teams. If there are going to be bonus payouts and things of that nature, when I get into the meetings, instead of the teams asking when are we going to get XYZ, I bring it up, right? Also head off some of the uncomfortable conversations up front by communicating, early and often. What I found is that you're going to see a recurring theme in all of the things that I'm saying. These are things that build trust, because I do not think that you can lead without building trust. So one of the things that I'm most proud of isn't what, I have letters from leaders and people in VCs and PEs and that will say, hey, you should absolutely hire this guy, right? I built decades long relationships with folks, but I'm not most proud of that, right? Like that's great. People will come and work on my teams again. And that says a lot because people can't stand their leaders typically, So when someone is like, hey, you're moving on to this organization, do you have a role for me because I want to work under your leadership again? That says a lot. It's absolutely the best compliment, right? So communicating is so important to building trust with the teams. It helps you as a leader become more vulnerable. When you start to get comfortable communicating with the folks, you open up to them, right? I learn about my team's spouses, family, et cetera, understand what motivates them. And they ask me personal questions. They ask me, about my life, am I taking care of myself, et cetera. And through that mutual empathy, right? You build really strong relationships. And it's more motivating than any like any authority that you have, and you can for a period of time make someone do something because you have the authority, but that type of influence is so much greater. I can say, hey, I'm overwhelmed and I need help. 5 people will volunteer to help me out. I don't have to assign someone to do that because you built this relationship and it's authentic, right? So communicating is just extremely important. And if anything, right, and it's probably the easiest thing to learn how to do as a leader, is just start talking, right, and sharing.
Jamal, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Okay, I've been in the company for a year, and I think I'm communicating okay. But
Right.
my program manager, I'm a project manager. My program manager came in, and I was very impressed with what she did. She put time on everybody's calendar who was affected by our team. That includes leadership. I'm like, what, girl? I don't want to do that. I'm shy. I'm introvert and extrovert. I'm like, I don't want to. But she went and talked with everybody. She set up time on everybody's calendar. So I guess to communicate what they wanted, like you said, what were they interested in, and to hear more about what they're about their background and what motivates them. What do you do when you go into a company, new company? How deep, how far, how wide do you go?
Same exact thing. I get on everyone's calendar who's impacted, but I start first cross functionally. I first want to meet the people who I'm going to have a direct impact, and then I start to spread out, right? And I also ask them, who do you think I should talk to that I haven't, right? And find out how to build those relationships. It's really interesting because like being a tech leader, one of the things that I used to do, because I was just a smart tech person, I would speak about things in a very technical way. And I remember at Matrix, right, JV and I, we would go out and he's pitching to get some business, and he would bring me out with him as his technical liaison, right? And I learned really quickly, yes, I can talk tech to the tech folks. When I'm speaking to the business folks, people already feel, you're an engineer, you're smart. They do not want to be talked at, and they do not want to be made to feel small. So I literally take the tech out of the talk, and I focus it on what's important to them. Tech runs through any organization now, or you're pretty much out of business. So we talk about business, we talk about operations, we talk about all of these other things, and tech is a tool to help you versus my team and I will only work this way under this set of conditions, and we're going to hold the organization hostage. No, we talk about being service oriented and what are some of your pain points? Why do you think that you're experiencing this? Do you think solution A may help. It endears you to people, right? When you get in and you just build that relationship. I'm not a natural, right, public speaker. The first time that I did public speaking was when I was at Matrix and I did a DevOps talk, and I was extremely nervous and was like, what if I just stumble and people want to debate me on topics that I'm bringing up. But I learned in getting out in front of people are looking for information, right? And most of the time, they're extremely respectful of the presenter. You don't have to know everything, right? But you have to be open to having that dialogue. So in your role, I think that you should be getting out, meeting people. It doesn't mean that you have to be. All right, I'm going to say this because it does impact people who look like me and you, right? Sometimes coming from a different cultural background, how we communicate, how we go about certain things may seem outside of what's dominant in the workplace. I struggled. I code switched. I did other things, and I did not, and I was not an effective communicator at all. When I started to bring my authentic self to work and said, hey, I'm going to be me, right? And I'm going to help you learn how to disseminate information from me, right? I'm not going to color my language. I'm not going to, lower my voice. I'm going to help people understand how to get this information. Because that was one of the things that stopped me from reaching out to people initially, because I would think when I ask this question, is someone going to say that I'm being, aggressive? Am I being XYZ? I just put all that aside. I have a job to do, right? And I'm coming to you with respect. But one of the things that I do tell people, I'm a native New Yorker. So I do lead with, hey, I'm very upfront and very direct. If that ever offends you, please just reach out to me and let's talk, because my intention is not to offend you. It sets this openness right away that we can communicate about things, right? And I have never had a response from someone that was negative, because sometimes people misunderstand things more than it is malice. So if you kind of open things up and you seem to be a person that's open and approachable, people are gonna take you that way.
Yeah, and I think as you explore that, I apologize. I think
Yeah. Thanks. Hi. I had a question for you.
Mhm.
You mentioned that communicating early and often and saying the same thing over and over in presentations, giving feedback, positive, negative. Can you give an example of how you do that? Like, I'm just wanting to kind of hear, like, you having a conversation with someone, how you're doing that. Because I think what I'm thinking in my head is maybe not how you say it. So just wondering.
Yeah. Let's start with something really simple, right? Like an outcome. Sometimes we will write down that the expected outcome for something, some business initiative, is to increase our revenue by 5%. That's going to be understood differently by different people. Although it says increase revenue by 5%, people are going to interpret that slightly differently, right? And when it comes down to setting up the work, people will go off and say, oh, well, that means that you want us to modernize our platform. Well, no, that's a 1.5 year project that costs X amount of money. Yes, it does bring stability, but and may have an impact on revenue 1.5 years from now. But what's missing maybe was the we want to do this, within 6 months to 12 months by adding X number of features. So as you're communicating often and repeating the same things, people are going to ask you different sets of questions, right? So it allows you to give additional context along the way. So I think that if you just state something and walk away from it with the expectation that folks are they just got it the first time and they understood exactly what you were looking for, it doesn't normally work out well. So if you repeat it and you keep opening it up, people do come back with questions. Actually, if you think about, you start a project, you go a month into it, now you have all sorts of questions that you didn't have when you actually started the project. So I keep recommunicating things so that people will continue to ask questions and keep the lines of communication open. Does that help, or is
Yeah,
that problems? I'll give an additional
yeah,
context.
yep, that helps.
I think now we're just gonna kind of get into general Q&A, right? You know, more of a AMA, ask me anything. If I have an answer, I'll give it. If I don't know, I have no problem saying I have no clue.
Yeah, I guess a big one for leaders has been in a past, year and a half now, with resizing after the Great Resignation and all of these maybe the biggest wholesale movement of workers in recent decades. Has it, or how has having to change, trying to use the right word, right? It's a very touchy topic, but having the right size or reduce headcount, how has that changed maybe the last 18 months? In ways I've seen it sort of become easier because people are more aware, like you said earlier, watching the news, and people are more aware that movement is happening. So that kind of helps. But on the flip side, it's more chaos. So people are more worried. So speak to that, please.
Yeah, letting anyone go for any reason for me is difficult. You can be a horrible performer and negatively impacting the team as a whole. And I will make the choice to let that person go, but it always impacts me because it's a human being who's going to lose their job. So then when you think about this reduction in forces, right, where you're impacting multiple people who didn't do anything wrong at work, right? They showed up, they got the job done, but conditions have forced that. It's extremely difficult. So as a leader, one of the things that one of the biggest arguments that I have with fellow leaders, right, is that there's a right way and a wrong way to do hard things, right? I look at companies like IBM who recently had a rift, but they let the employees know months in advance, gave large severances and set them up so that they had ample amount of time to get things done. And I watch other companies, folks walk in completely unaware, right? You know that this business decision is coming. You can prepare your employees, and I think that's the right way to do it. A lot of times, the apprehension is that people do not want this to get out in the news, and people are worried about how does this make you look as a leader, et cetera. I think so the burden and privilege of our leadership is that, yes, you have to field those questions. That's our job. So if we are going to let people go, those questions are going to be asked at the time that we let them go, so we can still do it in a humane way anyway. And it actually helps your reputation when you do that. Some things are out of your control, but what isn't your control is your decency. And so I find it, I haven't found a good reason why you wouldn't let people know if you know months in advance. I have seen situations where it's been abrupt, right? Where someone's come down from, the financial office with a, oh my God statement. We are in trouble. We didn't see this coming. And the only way to cost cut is XYZ. That has happened, but then you have to be transparent about that as well and say, hey, we ran into some sudden financial issues that are going to impact folks. We did not know in advance. Let's talk about it. but it's not easy, right? I personally, I'm never going to find it easy to let someone go, even when it's the right financial decision. I do the job that I have to do, but yeah, it sits on me because I think as a leader, was there anything that we could have done differently to avoid this, right? You can't stay there forever, but yeah, you are impacting lives.
Can I toss you a softball?
Sure.
So you said what makes you most proud is when you go someplace and people want to follow you and
Yeah.
keep working with you. So what makes you most happy about being a leader?
Yeah, I think, someone is going to be in that leadership role that does impact people's lives. And this may be a little bit of my ego. I trust me more than I trust a lot of people. And I trust that I will do the right thing both for the organization and for the people. One of the things that I do not let people call my team resources. I have a hard stop. These are people. I know them. I know their lives. These are not resources, right? And yes, I will make the hard calls when I have to, but these are people, and that makes me most happy is to impact these folks, watch them grow, right? At a Honeywell, I had a person on my team who he asked me a million questions and challenged every decision that I made. Oh, he got on my nerves, and I was like, why am I dealing with him? And then I said, you know what? He's actually a leader. And no one is tapping into his potential. And I remembered how I was, and I was like, yeah, you were a big pain in the ass to people. And they grew you into a leader because you were asking the right questions. He's an engineering manager now, right? And I see him moving into senior roles in the near future. At SimpleHealth, brought in a product manager who is, we promoted her to a director of our product, and I see her very soon in her career being a VP. She has dreadlocks, and she authentically brings herself to work, and sometimes worried about how she would be received. And we worked on, hey, there's a way to be you and be able to present in a board, right? So yeah, watching her present during the board of directors meeting, where I was like incredibly proud. Like, she smashed it. She was authentic and professional. So all of her data points were on. It was just amazing. So being able to help people grow, because look, I realize that minorities, women have not had a lot of leaders, especially in tech, right, that have been able to show up for them, represent them, advocate for them, and I get an opportunity to do that and introduce a new generation of leaders to folks who may have not otherwise had that opportunity. So I'm very proud about that.
Should be.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
Yeah, I'm all
Hey,
right.
I'm not trying to hog the questions, but I just want to know,
Mhm.
when did you know it was the right time to go from manager to director? When did you know in you it was time?
So one of the things as a good leader, what I do with people is I recognize when they're ready. I think that what happens is someone identifies that in you most likely before you do, because that nemesis that sits on one side of your shoulder, that self-doubt that tells you you're not ready, is always going to be there. That imposter syndrome is always going to be there. We all fight through it. When we're getting this new role, we ask ourselves, are we ready? But the thing is, when someone comes to you with that opportunity, it means that they've already seen in you, right, certain things. So if you have people advocating for you, putting some skin in the game for you, that's great. If you are wanting some of these roles and you're not sure if you're quite ready and you do not yet have anyone advocating for you, I would recommend investing in an executive coach. I think that which is very different than a mentor, right? You have several mentors, but having an executive coach that's going to sit down with you and challenge you in a certain way, because they're almost like part therapists, right? And you know, like I would have taken the CTO role, right? If it had not been for my executive coach. I was comfortable in a VP role and said, hey, I'm doing great here. If I get into the C-suite, I have to deal with the board. I have to do X, Y, Z. The expectations are really high, and the salary is only a minimum bump from VP, senior VP to CTO. So do I want to work twice as hard for relatively the same money? And she was like, hell yeah. And you want to do that for this set of reasons. And her coaching was invaluable. So I think that that's something that you might want to do if you're considering and do not have anyone who's identified you yet that can help prepare you. And something else to consider too about leadership is that it's not a I have to get there right away, right? You don't want to drag because of self-doubt, but you also should ask questions, right, of your leaders, right? Ask, if I'm looking to go from manager to director, what would the steps be? What are some of the things that, look, I may be executing well at the manager level. What would it take for me to execute at the director's level? And ask the hard questions and be prepared for answers that may sometimes hurt your feelings a little bit, because you'll hear your gaps, but you cannot work on that until you understand that those are gaps. And get more than one opinion, because your direct manager may feel some way, and then someone who's a director in another department that you work with may identify other things. And so you just take this as information points, that they're all data points, and then start working on the things that you can. One last thing with that is there's some things about you that some folks may think are negatives. Some things you have to kind of just live with. They may be personality traits, right? And you don't want to just wholesale change your personality. So there's some things in me that I go, yep, I'm never changing that. And I get that some folks may look at that and say, this is not the best quality. It's like, yep, born that way, and not going to tear myself down. But these other areas that I can work on, I'm going to work on. And keep learning, like be a constant student. Anything else?
Are you a Jets or a Giants fan?
Neither. I'm a Raiders fan, diehard. So listen, I was 4 years old, picture it, 1979. I wanted to play with my G.I. Joes, and my dad made me watch football, and he is a big Jets fan. So I took some makeup that was in my mom's thing and put on silver and black stuff, because the Jets were playing the Raiders, and I just wanted to root for the team that was battling my dad's team. And from that point, I became a diehard Raiders fan. So it was spite. And may have picked the wrong team because we haven't done much since the 80s, but I'm still diehard.
I wasn't expecting that.
I know. No one is. Yes.
Follow-up question. Got to ask him about the Knicks, Rangers, Yankees. I just gave him the teams that he should be aligned with. I'm from Westchester, Jamel. So
so Rangers, yes. I rock with the Knicks a little bit. Yankees always, because I used to walk. Like I grew up in the Bronx, so I would walk to 161st Street, and I guess that's where the old Yankee Stadium, because I heard that since I've left, there's a new stadium. So but I used to walk to 161st Street and watch the Yankees. So always a Yankees fan.
all right, JV, he's certified real New Yorker now. You happy?
Well,
now I can throw that back and say, well, what toppings do you put on a slice of pizza?
Well, pepperoni, can't admit it. Fast from the swine.
Okay, but that's the only thing.
No, plain slice, walking down Fordham on Concourse, getting on the Metro North back to Tarrytown.
Oh, you got it. Because that's how you get that greasy slice, that's cheese, walking back from Fordham Road was my thing too. Absolutely.
Good life.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's that New York life, and that's that Bronx life. Yes.
We saved all of you from clogging your arteries up the way we used to.
But we walked a lot, right? So the thing is, we did eat bad food, but we walked like 7 miles a day in New York. So somehow we maintained. We were really thin. So I moved to Atlanta. I couldn't gain weight in New York, and now I fight to keep it off. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
we drive everywhere in Atlanta.
Well, Waffle House was like 10 pounds the first month.
I don't eat Waffle House. I can't.
1998. The good life.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Jamel? All right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dr.
oh,
Collier,
hey,
you're
Ken.
on,
I just said good job.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Really appreciated you inviting me out. It's a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope you all have a great evening.
That was cool. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Sir.
you.
Great session, Jamel. Thank you.
Bye.
I'll take care.